We asked, does LGBTQ hide from gay stereotypes like voice, gestures, walk, and more? Despite, or perhaps because of hit shows like Glee, RuPaul's Drag Race, and Will and Grace, LGBTQ plus stereotypes have become more entrenched in media.
Your brain creates mental shortcuts as a way to help you rapidly respond to situations based on past experiences, thus leading to stereotypes. But these shortcuts are generalizations and are rarely accurate assessments of an individual or group. They're what's known as cognitive bias.
Once you establish these beliefs, it's difficult to change your way of thinking. This is because you'll unintentionally look for evidence that affirms your beliefs and discounts any evidence to the contrary. When left unchecked, stereotypes may lead to discriminatory behavior.
Stereotypes of LGBTQ plus individuals are often at the root of biases against our community. The very concept of a gay agenda is based on the stereotype of gay people wanting to convert straight people.
Other times, the LGBTQ plus community is stereotyped as a crowd that only cares about alcohol, drugs, and sex.
There are many examples of these stereotypes in media, and they very frequently cause harm to the community. Newsweek has compiled a list of some of the most common gay stereotypes in movies and television. Watch this.
Don't stomp your little last season Prada shoes at me, honey.
Is that your natural hair color?
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
See, this is the color I want.
This is Damien. He's almost too gay to function.
Stand still. There's a spark in your hair.
Get it, get it. Hot stuff coming through.
Dad, why did you bring me to a gay steel mill?
I got you into those baskets. You were nothing but a housewife when I found you. I didn't mean that. I've always admired you. Being a housewife is the hardest job on the planet. You're never not at work. It's just, how did we get to this place?
What tone? That sarcastic, contemptuous tone that means you know everything because you're a man and I know nothing because I'm a woman.
You're not a woman.
Oh, you bastard.
You love me. You're not marrying me.
Tom, I don't love you.
No, I don't mean that as a threat.
To be honest, I'm a little relieved you're going.
What?
I have a proposition to make. A makeover.
I'm in. Makeovers are like crack to me. Rachel somehow manages to dress like a grandmother and a toddler at the same time.
Don't stomp your little last season Prada shoes at me, honey.
Our last season. Gay men know designers. Straight men don't. Know what? He did leave a shared tape in the pool house one time.
You know, Reddit has quite a conversation going on this week about stereotypes and how society responds to them. And one of the examples that are really being focused on is television reporters, reporters in the field and behind the scenes. I know Jonathan has some experience with this. and the focus is at local stations, whether network affiliated or independents. There's lots of conversation about how you speak. And if you're gay, you have to modify how you speak because they don't want you to sound too gay. And that's what got us into this story. We are full in South Florida of gay reporters and on-air reporters at many stations here in South Florida. And I began to think, oh wait, most don't sound stereotypical gay, and it made me wonder, when I know them personally, did that mean that they've modified their communication style on air? What do we think about stereotypes, and are we running away from it?
I can speak real quickly to the news thing. I've worked with many gay and lesbian reporters across many, many different regions and here in South Florida. And when we go out for drinks afterwards, we go out to dinner, they speak exactly as they do on air. I mean, you know, perhaps there's maybe a little bit more production when they're sitting here, but on the whole, they just talk like they talk. And so that's my comment on that.
Yeah, so that's not your experience?
That is not my experience whatsoever, yeah.
So my comment is a very personal one. right? Because I think that sometimes we let, especially older folks like us, Max, not like Al, like me and John, I should say.
Not that
our it's like a relic.
Right.
Our own internalized homophobia gets the best of us.
Yes.
And it's happened to me on this show. When I've watched something back from this show or it's happening out or translation, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to reel it in a little bit, right? Because I feel like I'm really effeminate sometimes. You know, it happened very recent. You just did that on purpose. Just like you were looking at me when you were setting this all up, I knew that was coming somehow. But it's true. You know, when I just recorded a promo for the Faye What show last week, and when our production team sent it to us, I had a hard time watching myself. Yeah. And I almost asked the production team if I could re-record it because I'm afraid of what may be perceived. And I'm super openly gay everywhere.
And gosh, there's thousands of people that would come in on that comment. So you think that that's internalized homophobia?
It absolutely is.
Outside of your circle, it's
both.
your own pressure.
I think it's my own pressure, and I'm afraid of what the reactions may be.
Right.
Because I think a big part of my success as an LGBTQ professional has been being able to blend with the mainstream straight folks.
Well, I'm curious, being the activist that you are the executive director of SAVE, why isn't your response, I don't care what they think?
Well, what's funny is that I eventually get there, but it takes me a little bit. My internalized homophobia, my Cuban machismo gets the best of me. I think what's my dad gonna think when he sees me on air? You know, and that gets to me as well. Or even people that I date. Actually, I'm currently seeing someone that kind of made fun of me on one of the shows. He's like, oh, you're so butch. Don't say anything. You're so butch normally, right? Like you're on the show and you let loose. And I'm like, well, who cares? Exactly.
You know, Dan, I'm curious. Working for Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, it is more of a more corporate structure in terms of how tourism is promoted. Very important. Have you ever had any issues related to mannerisms or things being an out gay man? Is that something that you've ever?
Absolutely not.
Never.
Now, I do have the same feelings that Tony has, and I do think it has a lot to do with our machismo upbringing. I think I'm very hard on myself, listening to myself on tape or watching myself. I'm always scrutinizing my movements, scrutinizing my voice. But I do find some people, it's not just with gay people. I think a lot of people are coached out of sounding too black or sounding too Southern. And I think that eventually that becomes part of your speech.
Very interesting. Max?
What you said about like code switching.
Yeah,
like that's like
exactly
a thing.
what it
It's
is,
like a real thing. It's gay code switching.
Do you do you even consider stereotypes and concerns of how it washes over?
Oh, absolutely.
You do,
oh, absolutely.
even at your age. You
no, absolutely. I mean, I think that that presentation is so. And like I also sometimes when I watch myself back, I'm like, oh, especially when it's something that I can't craft. Like if I'm recording a video of myself, for example, and posting it on social media, I can record as many takes as I want. I can do whatever, and I can rehearse over and over and over again and play it back. Something like this, I can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So like watching it afterwards, it's very like jarring in a way.
Well, we're doing these stories of exploring our gay culture, giving us an opportunity to talk about them and very serious subjects, but we're gay after all, which means we also like the fun and the humor and the satire of it. So let's also explore that. To counter these type of stereotypes, we've also compiled a list of the types of gays the media really should be focusing on. Get ready. Well, we'll start with gender-bending crossdressers, like the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. They were founded in 1979, and they have long been a voice for HIV awareness and community fundraising.
Or the evil transgender temptress, one of which I know very, very well. Straight women, beware, or your husband may fall for someone like my sister, Ariana Lind, who lifted herself out of the struggles of sex work and being an HIV-positive transgender woman to the creator of her own foundation to help the community, Ariana Center.
And then there are my favorites, the cutthroat business gays. They use their lonely, childless lives to steal jobs from the heterosexuals, and good for them. Like Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Since he lives a childless, barren life, he has started donating his fortune to charity and plans on having donated his entire $800 million by the time he dies. How is he not a billionaire? He's the CEO of Apple.
And then the gays who spend all their time traveling, then shoving the things they find in other countries in the faces of the straights. Like the Rainbow Railroad. They travel all over and then they're finding even more gays and helping them move places where they can be even more gay, like Miami.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jen, could you remind me what you do for a living? Oh, wait, never mind.
Then there are the LGBTQ plus youth, like yours truly, who refuse to conform to the culturally accepted standards of gender and sexuality. These punk kids think that just because they want to identify authentically as themselves, society should go along, please. And the worst part is there are many people that are.
And finally, the worst stereotypes of all. The LGBTQ plus media. Not only do their values fly in the face of real news stations like Fox News, but they continually try to make non-LGBTQ people aware of the so-called inequality and violence towards the LGBTQ community. It's all propaganda, I'm quite sure.
All of it.
Yes. What do we think about these stereotypes, the silliness of the stereotypes we face? Young, travel.
They're kind of based in truth.
That's the thing. That's the
Stereotype
thing.
for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think, for example, like the transgender temptress and that idea, that fear mongering, that like trans people and LGBT folk in general are again like predatory in a way, and I feel like that's such a harmful stereotype. Like,
you know, I recoil. It's interesting. I recoil every time we make the joke. Sometimes we do it here at Queer News Tonight, but often in my social circles, making the joke about straight men. And straight men ultimately, last night we were at the event. What's the difference between a gay man and a straight man? 3 drinks. You know, it's a funny joke, but it really isn't a funny joke.
Right.
Because straight men are straight men. There is fluidity, there is gender fluidity, I understand that, but each individual comes to that on their own. They shouldn't have to be forced into being pushed into that fluidity by uber gay guy.
Well, and again, where does it come from, right? In Latinx culture, there is such a thing as a bugarrón. I know you've heard this term in all your trips to Cuba, but a bugarrón is technically a straight man that has sex with gay men. And that's absolutely allowed. And I'm sure that in other Latin American countries, there's another name for it. But for Cuban people or the Caribbean folks in general, it's bugarrón. So that's a very real thing. I know several.
In the South, there's like a phenomenon. I read a research paper on it. It's called brosexual. It's like a lot of like in the deep South, men will have that sort of like straight identifying men will, you know.
It's either that or pigs and cows.
Right.
Ooh.
You're the one from Virginia. I was going to ask. I was going to ask.
All right. Well,
you know, I worked a fundraiser up in Palm Beach County about a month ago, and as I was a photographer, and I was cleaning up my gear, and someone came up to me and was asking me something, and he goes, "So are you gay?" And I was like, "Yes, I am. You know, I'm not ashamed. You know, whatever." And then he goes, "Oh, you don't look like it or act like it." And I just responded, well, "You should see me when I'm having sex."
I get that a lot.
Do you?
You should see you when you're having sex.
No.
The people should see me when I'm having sex.
I definitely don't.
Yeah,
but.
you don't get that. All right. Well, we're going to continue to explore gay culture issues that we want to give the opportunity to have discussion about it and put it in front of you for it to be thought-provoking for all of us. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ+